Yoda, Darth Maul, Wookiees.
Oh god. Oh no.
Oh my god, how did you not?
Oh god! Yo, what the f?
Down.
Oh my god. Just want to take a moment to thank the lovely people at Electronic Arts for extending the beta to this game so that I can make an even more entertaining video on it. That entertainment of course coming in the fact that I'm just going to be talking smack about it for a couple minutes. But to be honest, the sound effects and the graphics are really good. Star Wars Battlefront 2 is the sequel to the critically acclaimed Star Wars Battlefront that, wait. Star Wars Battlefront 2 Corporate Reboot Edition is the sequel to a completely different game with the same name of a game that released a long fucking time ago. One of the main marketing caveats that this game has over the other one is that it's bigger. Or something.
Much bigger.
I'm not trying to make this into a game review, but I'm not gonna lie. If we are to compare the two games specifically, there's really no debate that this is the more sophisticated one. It has a lot going for it that can make it a really enjoyable experience, with an interesting array of game modes that can range from basic infantry skirmishes to total air-ground vehicular combined arms stuff with an interesting set of objectives and team play involved. The game is definitely a step up from what was a very bare-bones shoot dudes but it's Star Wars simulator that came out a while ago. But then, EA's stupid. If you're not familiar with shooters like Battlefront, most games like this that are class-based feature progression systems, which more or less entail playing a particular class a whole bunch, and then you get more cool stuff to try out with that particular class. Battlefield's a really good example of this. This arrangement of cool stuff usually comes in the form of more guns or gadgets to try out, but generally speaking, you can become competitive, meaning you can be on the same level of anybody else in a relatively short amount of time, right? Like, you don't have a competitive disadvantage. These systems aren't always perfect, and you are gonna have metas where maybe one class has like 2 to 3 really viable loadout options, but the idea is to give people side grades and different ways to play the game that are all equally enjoyable. The problem with Battlefront 2 is that from what I have seen, this progression system has nothing to do whatsoever with how well you do in a game, how much you play a particular class, or anything like that. It's all RNG loot boxes. Typically, these loot boxes in games as popular as this only feature cosmetic options that don't have any particular impact on gameplay itself, like the look of your character. Overwatch is a good example of a game that popularized this system. What is different here is that you're playing a game where your gameplay experience is directly correlated to a slot machine, and it's gotten members of this game's subreddit community upset. Very upset. Even Forbes magazine wrote an article about this crap. And let me be very clear when I am talking about EA as a business and why they made this decision, okay? I'm not going to categorize EA in this comparison to some kind of super smart, conniving, 4G chess-playing, some of gaming publisher mastermind. This is stupid. This is a stupid f***ing business decision. And I know why this happened. It's because EA overlooked, somehow, it's a Star Wars game, somehow they managed to overlook that a Star Wars game would have an audience mainly comprised of nerds who would notice and have objections to this sort of thing. That's the thing though, right? EA doesn't care about gamers, and EA doesn't care about you, okay? And I'm saying this with a grain of salt. I wouldn't make the stretch and say something absurdly cringy, like EA just hates real gamers, because real gamers, if we're gonna be facetious enough to even make that a category of person, aren't gonna play Battlefront 2 in the first place. They're probably playing PUBG right now. What I mean is, people who have a vested interest in a game's sole entertainment quality and people who have a vested interest in good business models are two very different things, and we're very picky. The problem here is that EA basically has removed a great deal of the player's autonomy. They are trying to market the experience of being in this environment, everything you're seeing here, which is all very well put together, as the main selling point. But what EA is failing to understand nowadays when it comes to marketing most of their games is that, for the most part, gamers don't buy games solely for the atmosphere and the theatrical impressiveness of them. It helps, but gamers buy games for a sense of reward fulfillment. and the only way you can get reward fulfillment is through two things, and that is good mechanics through engaging gameplay and a good progression system. A good example of a game that I think got progression back in the day really well and served as a genius way to increase a multiplayer's longevity was Call of Duty's prestige system. It was the online dick measuring contest back in the day. COD also had weapon skins that you had to get through performing specific hard feats in the game. So when someone saw that you had that shit in the game, people knew you either, one, boosted for it, and people would know if you boosted for it, or you really were hot shit. And this reward fulfillment can come in a variety of ways outside of video games, obviously, okay, right? Like, you pump iron a bunch at the gym, you do that enough for a year, you get some big muscles, you are then perceived usually by members of the opposite sex that you are more attractive. This is a very basic idea of reward fulfillment, okay? Put in effort, get a thing. You study a bunch for a test, you get an A. Gamers are, for the most part, by their nature, very competitive people.
Killing me! Get the fuck out of my room! I'm playing Minecraft!
Why do you think we get so mad at them when we fuck up or when we lag? In PUBG, your reward fulfillment comes from being one out of a zillion other schmucks to win that game. In Star Wars Battlefront, it's 120 credits, or whatever the fuck, to get a pack, to get a whole bunch of shit that you might not even want in the first place. And then the only way to get the shit that you want in the first place is to buy it with real money and just keep on gambling and gambling and gambling. Like what? And this is the saddest part probably, is that the game is actually pretty solid from a mechanics perspective, and everything that the art and design teams are doing here is nothing short of fucking phenomenal, okay? When I loaded up Starfighter Assault for the first time, I was considerably impressed. I don't know what the dynamic is to like, whoa! Oh, okay, that's dope. That's really cool. Look at this.
Space. Oh, baby.
Dude, that honestly looks so cool.
Oh.
Let's go.
Where is this supposed to be? Is this supposed to be like the Death Star some shit?
It's just some big Imperial bullshit.
Get in there, boy.
Yo, this is, okay, Yo! There really is a lot to like here and appreciate, because what EA and DICE have done here is considerably different than the first game. The first game was really kind of bare bones and, in my opinion, didn't really have much to it, right? It was basically just shoot dudes in Star Wars Simulator. Well, now it's not so much. It's not as cut and dry and basic as it used to be. Now we have all of these interesting scenarios, and it looks really pretty, and it looks all Star Wars-y, but the problem is that EA overlooked something. Again, because EA has locked themselves in this really kind of weird corporate bubble. EA doesn't understand the market that they are selling to anymore. They had the first game, and everybody complained that the game's mechanics were a bit dry. So now the game modes are diverse, and there's more to do. That was all on the dev team, alright, from a management perspective. But in the business end, they still had control over whatever the fuck the loot boxes were, because it's a monetary thing. And also notice, right, that this is Star Wars we're talking about. The IP, the license, the name is so big that EA thinks that they're in this position where they can do whatever they want without taking into consideration nerds. And I say nerds not in an insulting way. I refer to nerds as a market that EA could reach out to, right, and get money from. Like, they would profit more by taking these people into account. Everybody's saying that they're doing this slot machine in order to get more money. Kind of on the right track. EA thinks they're gonna get more money from it, but they won't. At least not as much as they could have. EA has somewhat logically assumed that most of the rich people in Santa Monica who have an Xbox One in their apartment are gonna throw this game on to blow off steam, and they don't need to have this whole, like, progression system, because that's too complex and they won't particularly care or appreciate it. If this was EA's only market, yeah. If Battlefront was a free-to-play game, yeah, this wouldn't matter. But I think EA really overlooked how big this IP is. And let us not forget the early mid-2000s that had so many freaking Star Wars games that had the interesting mechanics built around the unique universe. But now, EA's really fucked up big time. And so EA has reached the pinnacle.
Deeper progression and customization as well.
They have reached peak head-ass. Again, would have loved a Bad Company 3 by now. But hey, who remembers Bad Company 3? That shit was out like more than a year ago. I can't process things that happen more than that amount of time. We're talking about Star Wars, and all the money that we're getting from this business partnership, and why it's basically going to be impossible to change the game from what we're seeing right now, because the decisions were probably made in the production process several months beforehand, through discussions had with stockholders who were kind of skeptical about things going forward anyway. Alright, I'm done. Oh. And Rogue One was better than The Force Awakens. Don't at me.